In this video I wanted to talk more about the idea of choice, of choosing love. Ultimately we're always choosing the relationships and the things in our life that we have. We're just choosing them. We have different ways that we can go about making the choice. What I'm talking about in this class is a conscious choice, a choice that's based on understanding and a choice that's based on the attempt of having something workable in your life. Maybe to some of you all it sounded like I was making this cold, rational decision. I wanted to clarify that I'm not advocating that at all. What I'm advocating is a choice of a warm, peaceful, loving, workable choice, rather than these choices we get, these desperate choices that we so often make in our lives that always end up in disaster. When I was a kid, my mom was going through a rough time in her marriage to my dad, and I think I was 15 or something, and she had left a book laying around called Woman Who Loved Too Much. And, I just started reading that book. I don't know why, maybe because of my future destiny, but for some reason, here I am. I want to read this book. Put down the Western, grab that Woman Who Loved Too Much book. And one of the things I always remembered from the book, I don't remember anything else in the book, but it talked a lot about this desperate need for love. And it gave all these cases of women who are desperately need and be with this guy, desperately in love with this guy. And that these women who, learn to live healthier with themselves, learn to be more complete in themselves. And that when they had successful relationships, when they finally had successful relationships after making those steps, and they were asked about, okay, what is your life now? Tell me about your love life now. What's your new relationship life? This good relationship you have now, tell me about it. There's one thing that every woman said. So there was one thing that every woman said that they had in common with the experience of a working relationship. And that was that none of their relationships were that same old, desperate, I gotta have this feeling. They were more of a peaceful feeling, and that's what all of them experienced as they grew into whole enough women who can have healthy relationships. So what I'm talking about is for a lot of people who've had it really rough from day one of not having examples of love in their life, in their parents, in their relationship with their parents, even with their siblings and everybody, is that for a lot of people there's a whole new experience, love, waiting for you all. An experience of love that you don't understand yet because you haven't experienced yet. There's a lot of people who fall into that department. Most of us fall into the gray spectrum, of course, of sort of have, sort of haven't. But what I'm talking about in this course is not about a cold, calculating choice of love. It's about a warm, peaceful, embracing, workable love that I'm talking about choosing here. Okay? And yes, that means one that's full of romance, and that's full of fun, and that's full of all the good stuff. What's absent is the desperation, that I gotta this pull, this desperate pull that leaves you with no choice. Let's call it that need that overcomes everything that really matters in our life, okay? Now, in making choices, there's one other thing I thought about over the last week since the last video that's important to understand about any time we make choices, okay? Whether anytime you do anything, you're making a choice. You get out of bed in the morning, you chose to get out of bed, okay? You call someone for dinner, you chose that for a reason. Everything we do has a motivation behind it, okay? In Sanskrit, the word they use to describe this motivation is guna, okay? Guna means a string. It's the string with which you're attached to your actions. So when you decide to do something, you tie yourself, you get a little string out of your pocket and you tie yourself to that. I'm going to go out with Bob and do something today. And you're tying it with a string. And that string is the guna. It's what ties you to that action. And gunas, there's 3 types of strings, okay, that tie us to our choices or actions. Those are sattva, rajas, and tamas. These are very dirty words. And remember, my definition of a dirty word is a word that has multiple meanings with the original meaning being pretty much lost. Like the F word, fuck. It means for unlawful carnal knowledge. Okay? That's one possible old derivation of it. Okay? That's what it means. But think of all the meanings we use it, right? Rarely are any of the times we use the F word a proper word. It's a very dirty word. Love. Well, when we really think of what love is and we think in the ways we use it, it's a very dirty word. The true meaning of some of these words have been lost. Sattva, rajas, and tamas are words that have the meaning of have been lost. They've become dirty words. Okay? So while everyone who's invested all in Hindu culture, Vedic astrology, yoga, has heard these words, I need to take a few minutes to really describe what they mean. Because in astrology, when we say something is sattvic, rajas, or tamas, we're meaning very, very specific things in accordance with the true old meaning of those words, not in accordance with how it's commonly used in a dirty word fashion, okay, meaning not original to the real meaning of that word. What these 3 words represent are the 3 reasons, the 3 motivations for which we would do anything. So anytime we do anything, we're doing it because of a sattva motivation, a rajas motivation, or a tamas motivation. Okay? And neither of these are better or worse in the true sense of the word. Okay? Whether you do something out of sattva or tamas, there's nothing wrong with either one. But the thread that you're tying it with is stronger or weaker. Sattva is the strongest thread, tamas is the weakest thread, rajas is a thread that has a strength in between. So when you tie yourself to something with sattva, you're really tying like a big, strong rope. That rope will never break. When you tie yourself with tamas, you're tying yourself with this rope that will break very easily. And rajas in between those two, okay? They aren't, these 3 words do not represent in the original meanings, they do not represent, in the context of the gunas, they do not represent judgments. They're taught as judgments. Sattva means you're doing the right, the good thing in modern, language. Tamas means you're doing something evil. So if you're taking drugs, they're saying, oh, that's tamasic behavior. If you're meditating, they're saying, oh, that's sattvic behavior. No, that's not true. Meditation is meditative behavior. Taking drugs is generally self-destructive behavior, but sometimes can be healing behavior. It depends on the circumstances. But these words, their original intention in the context of the gunas is not about judgment. And we commonly see these words as being used as judgment words. Oh, they're a rajasic person. They're not sattvic. Everyone's supposed to be sattvic. Bullshit. In every action we do, we're doing it sattvic, rajas, or tamas, and we're doing it appropriately depending on the situation. And they're all good motivations. Just some of the motivations have longer lasting ties than the others. So let me explain. Sattva, anytime you do something that's motivated by the fact that it is simply you following who you really are, that's sattva. That's the thickest thread or string that you can tie yourself to an action. So if who you really are is someone who just thinks of the divine, and you wake up and you think of the divine, you sit down and meditate and think of the divine, you're meditating out of sattva. And so we know, in 70 years, you're still going to be doing that. Okay? That's a motivation of sattva. It's when you do it because it's who you really are. Okay, now, tamas is when you do something because if you don't, there's going to be a negative repercussion. Or you do something because doing it helps you get away from something painful, something undesirable. So if you're depressed and you decide, geez, I need to go meditate to get away from this depression, you're meditating out of tamas. You're meditating with the motivation of getting away from something that sucks. That's all tamas is, in the original meaning of this word. Okay? The majority of the people who meditate, well, not now probably the majority of people meditate on rajas. But generally speaking, the majority of people who meditate are doing it out of tamas. Life is suffering. Suffering's no good. I'm full of pain. I can meditate and feel better, so I'm going to meditate. You see? So you see how beautiful tamas is? Now the thing with tamas is, we only do it for as long as the negative repercussions are there. So, if the person meditates because they're depressed, once they're no longer depressed, they stop meditating because the motivation of depression is gone. Unless that motivation was replaced by a rajas or sattva motivation. Okay? Rajas is what you do because you got to do something. So you're generally just going to do what kind of is happening. Okay? So right now, meditating is a big fad. A lot of people meditate, a lot of people go through yoga, stretching at the yoga studio and say shanti, shanti and stuff like that. Because it's a huge fad right now. And they need to do something. Their friends like, you want to go meditate, want to do yoga? Sure, let's go. It's just part of the fun and fad of it all. Okay? Once this fad ends, all the people who are doing it for this rajas purpose will stop doing it. They'll do something else. Okay? Unless in the meantime they developed another motivation behind it. Okay? So, another way I like to explain this, every day we have to get out of bed. Why are we getting out of bed? There's a motivation. Are we getting out of bed because of sattva, rajas, or tamas? If the house is on fire, so we jump out of bed so we don't get burnt down with the house, the motivation for getting out of bed that day is tamas. The next day, if the house doesn't burn down, we might not even get out of bed. Right? There's no reason to get out of bed if the house isn't burning down from a tamas point of view. Might as well sleep all day long, okay? Rajas gets out of bed because it's like, oh, you know, all my neighbors are going up a walk up the hill, so yeah, I guess I'll get up and go with my neighbors. Okay, it's just something got to be done, we just kind of do what everyone's doing. That's like the easiest way to kind of see rajas. Okay? But on the days that the neighbors aren't getting ready in the morning to walk up the hill, the whole neighborhood's not doing it, they might not even get out of bed. Okay? A sattva person jumps out of bed every morning, every day, because their natural self says, I'm here to do this today, and I'm inspired and feel good about doing this today. And they bounce out of bed. Okay? The rajas person sets their alarm. Okay, 7 p.m., I got to be out of bed by 7. Because I don't want to miss it. The neighbors, you know, are going to be leaving, and I have to be there by 7. So it sets its alarm, and the alarm wakes up, and they go, okay, I got to get up, I got to get up. The sattva person, you know, he doesn't set his alarm. Maybe he does because he's stressed, he might oversleep. But he wakes up 15 minutes before the alarm. Okay? It's like his inner self is like going, okay, it's time to get going. Let's get going with what you are. You're not a sleeping zombie. You're a living person who's going to do something joyful. Okay? So, everything we do, whether it's astrology, we do out of one of these 3 motivations. The only thing that's guaranteed to be a lifelong choice are the choices that come out of sattva. Okay? Because they're come out of, this is really who I am. So if you're an astrologer because your life sucks and you're studying astrology, once your life doesn't suck, there's a good chance you'll quit astrology. And that's okay. Doing things out of tamas is really important. Okay? We're here to get away from pain. So that means we're here to spend a lot of time getting away, using tamas as a motivation. We're motivated to do things because of pain. That's a really handy tool that God and life uses to motivate us. Okay? But once the goad is done, once the pain is done, there's no more reason to keep it up. So things we do out of tamas, The only difference between them and what we do out of sattva, for instance, is how long-term the commitment will be. The commitment is dependent upon the pain being there or not. Okay? One tiny day the pain will not be there, the motivation will be gone. Sattva is dependent on who you really are. So if that's really you and you're doing it because it's who you really are, well, because that's who you really are, it's going to last as long as you last. Meaning it's going to last a lifetime. Okay? And Rajas, you do it because you just sort of can. You know, it's available to you to do it. But is it really who you are? No. Are you doing it because if not, you're going to be miserable? No. Just kind of doing it because you can do it. Okay? So, anytime you make a serious choice, it's good to look at a choice and say, what's my motivation here? So that as your future envelops and changes, you understand why one day you don't feel like doing it anymore. So you can say, oh, I don't feel like doing it anymore because I always understood I did it for this motivation. So it's natural for me to want to leave it at some point. Otherwise, we can have such hard times transitioning. Because the only guna that can motivate us to do something that doesn't require transition in the future is the sattva guna. Because it's based on who we really are. Okay? These other two gunas, if we make a choice out of them, one day we're going to have to make a transition with those things. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if we understand that why we need to, because the motivation was not a lifelong motivation of this is who I really am, then you can make that transition more healthily, more readily, with less feelings of remorse or guilt or confusion. So it's important to use these concepts and understand, why am I choosing this? And they're all valid reasons. There's no judgment of one of these reasons being better than the other. The only difference is some reasons last longer than other reasons. Okay? So, in respect to relationships, if you choose a partner because you're hurting and they help your pain disappear. Okay, I'm depressed, but when I'm with you, I'm happy. I feel empty, but when I'm with you, I feel fulfilled. I'm scared, but I'm with you, I feel safe. Okay? I'm lost, but when I'm with you, I feel found. I'm depressed, but with you, I'm healing. I'm not motivated, but with you, I'm motivated. Anytime it's like you're getting away from a negative state by being with your partner, your motivation is a tamas motivation. You're choosing that person because the choice helps you get away from something painful. You're suffering the pains of poverty, and you choose this person because they have money. It's a really obvious material example. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a motivation to choose someone. It is a big motivation to choose someone so we can get away from suffering. Okay? Now, if you do that, and it's totally acceptable to do that, again, there's no judgment on these gunas. They're all beautiful parts of life on earth. Is that if a day comes where you're no longer suffering, then you have no reason to choose that person anymore. So if you're depressed, and then you're with someone that helps you feel better, so you're like, gosh, I'm going to choose this person because I'm not depressed when I'm with them. Well, when you heal the inner aspect of yourself that allowed you to be depressed, you have no reason to be with this person anymore, unless another reason is discovered. Okay? So if we choose a relationship, I want to say the times we choose a relationship out of tamas are because we need someone to help us get away to survive our pain, to help us move through our pain, whatever. That motivation is only valid, it's only a motivation as long as the pain hasn't been healed. Once it's been healed, you may or may not have another motivation to be with that person. So you see, when we choose relationships, a lot of the reasons that people decide to separate is because a choice was made out of a reason that was not sattva, because only sattva can last a lifetime. So if we make a choice to be with someone out of tamas or rajas, there's a time that a transition is necessary into a different state, a different reason to be with each other, or the relationship has to end if it can't find another motivation to be with each other. Okay? Now, if a person chooses a relationship out of tamas, chooses a person because you make me feel good, being with you, I have the money to overcome my material suffering, anything like that, okay? Then, if the person never learns how to be prosperous or never learns how their entire life learns how to be a joyful, happy person by their own means, then they'll have that tamasic motivation their entire life to be with that other person. But that won't really feel good, because at the end of the day, they're still a person who's suffering low self-worth and is prone to depression. And they're completely dependent on this thing. It's like, yes, if the house is on fire, you want to run out of the house. But do you want to have to get out of bed? But do you want to have to run out of bed every day? Or do you want your house to burn down every day in order to get you out of bed? Of course not. Okay? But there's times when you need to. Same in that relationship choice. There's times in our life where we need someone because we're hurt, and that's going to make us choose people, a certain person who can help us with their pain. And we're going to fall in love with them for helping us with their pain. But once that pain's healed, the motivation is no longer there. And we have to discover a new reason. Okay? I've made choices to spend time with people out of that reason. Some of the most beautiful experiences I've had with people have been because I was a hurting unit, you know? And it's a beautiful experience. So I'm not, again, tamas is a beautiful thing. The only point is, it's never a lifelong choice. It's only a choice as long as you have that pain. Once you have that painful motivation. But raise your hand if you want to have a painful motivation for anything your entire life. Of course not. No one wants a painful motivation. But those times are present in all of our lives. Okay? Now, rajas, if you choose a relationship out of rajas, you choose it because you just can. You know, like a girl and a guy become roommates. You know, I need a roommate. Oh yeah, let me check the ads. I found someone who's renting half their house. I'll go be their roommate. And you're living together and you decide to do a few things together. Next thing you know, there's this kind of relationship going on because you just sort of can. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, men and women, or two gay guys or two gay girls, they just kind of can do certain things that put them into relationship mode. And I'm not really with this person because I'm miserable and I need them to help me from being miserable. It's not, this person is my inspiration. This person reflects who I am. They're the mirror of who I really am. And they really support me in who I really am. It's not this sattvic motivation. It's just, we can kind of do this. Or we just met at a party and we just sort of liked each other. You know, we just kind of could be together. You know, we just kind of got together. And because we just could. It just sort of worked, you know. Well, that motivation can last a long time because it's not based on pain, okay? It's always based on some things that actually do just sort of work. The motivation is there, yeah, we just sort of could. You know, you're male, I'm female, the parts kind of fit, you know. Our lifestyles kind of fit. So we could just sort of do this. But as people change and grow, eventually it's not going to really work. And they're going to find themselves going, I really kind of need something different. You know? This really isn't enough of a reason to put up with all the compromises that relationships ask of us. You know, the simple compromises even that being in a partnership requires. And so eventually people grow out of a rajasic relationship. Now if they never grow and they never have new experiences, they can stay in a rajasically motivated relationship a really, really long time. But raise your hand if you never want to grow and you never want to have more experiences. Nobody's raising their hand, right? So a rajasic relationship generally peters out. Now the nice thing about a rajasic relationship, when it does peter out, it's the most likely type of relationship to peter out as friends. Okay? Like, yeah, I'm fine. We can just be friends. No big deal, you know? It's not always. If people have a lot of deep wounds, of course, they'll never allow anything to end in friendship. But generally, this is the type of relationship that's most likely end as, you know, when it peters out, to transform into just kind of a casual friendship. Now, tamasic relationship, when someone makes a choice out of tamas to be with someone, if that relationship ends before they're healthy, it can turn into really ugly stuff. You know, they can feel victimized, they can blame, they can feel used. It can turn into a really ugly something. But if they heal, then they just realize, this person's sort of not right for me in the bigger picture. And then they're able to leave in a very thankful, beautiful state. So how a tamasic relationship goes when it ends depends so much on where the person who made the tamasic choice is at with themselves when it does end. Sadly, most of the time it ends badly because eventually, no matter how much a person cares and loves a person, if they're constantly engaged in being there to help the person feel better, eventually they can't keep that up. Okay? And they'll collapse, they won't be able to handle it, and they'll have to separate, and then the person who made the tamasic choice has lots of reasons to feel bad. Okay? But there are times when we need someone, when we're in a tough state, to help us get through that. And we want, if that happens, approach it with that understanding that you're getting a gift to help you get through a painful time in your life, and to recognize that it's your responsibility to heal as a result of that gift, or with the assistance, or because of the extra little bit that gift gives you. But it's your responsibility to heal whatever it is that brought you to that place of pain. Okay? And not the lifelong task of your partner. Okay? All right, then sattva. Sattva motivation is when we do something because it's who we really are. So who you really are and who the person really is, it's just like, of course. There's no other, it's like, of course, what else? You know? I mean, there's just this, let's call it soul purpose. You know, the nature of both people is here for the same reason. They found the person who's most like them in their true essence that they've met. Okay, that's what sattva is like. It's like being with this person is like being with the best part of myself all over again. Okay, I'm with this person because this person really reflects who I really am. Okay, and as a result of that, I can be with this person all the time. Because who I am is who I am, the essence of who we are. The details of that can change, but I'm talking about the essence here. Okay? Sattvic quality is the rarest quality in earth because we're also conditioned, we're also brainwashed, we're also culturally indoctrinated, we're also wounded by our family and our upbringings, that we're all struggling to get in touch with who we really are. And to do anything out of sattva means to do something because of who we really are, out of our swadharma, our own nature. And that includes the choices we make in relationships. Ultimately, as each of us heals, and ultimately as each of us learns and lives as our true selves, without all the conditionings, with all the bullshit pressure, with all the I have to do this or else I'm going to hell ideas, without our unconscious saying, Mommy wouldn't love me unless I did it this way, or Daddy would hate me if I did it this way. Once we're free from all that conditioning, and we can just really thrive as ourselves, that's when we're able to have, to make choices out of sattva. And of course, some things we more readily make choices out of that, and other things we struggle to make choices in that, because all of us have different areas of life where we get the most confused and we feel the most lost. Okay? And we all have areas that we just easily do the sensible, right thing that really reflects who we are. Okay? But as we become more aware of who we are, and we have greater self-realization, which largely means, oh, I'm not that festering wound, I am this. As we go through experiences that allow us to see that, we become more, then we're going to more and more choose things out of, oh, I'm really this, that's why I'm choosing it. Okay? That's the only lifelong choice. And we will grow through these different relationship processes. And you might have noticed in your life that maybe earlier on you had one type and you've moved up and you're maybe now really just experiencing more sattvic relationships or sattvic choices. This applies to work. This applies to where you live. It applies to everything, you know. It applies to all of our choices. But of course it applies heavily to our relationship choices. And it applies heavily to our spiritual practices too, okay, which are two potentially long-lived lifetime choices. So I think it's helpful to understand why we made the choice we made in our relationships. Okay? You really, if your house is burning down, you have no choice but to get out of it, right? You have no choice but to get out of bed as fast as possible. So you see, a tamasic choice is really not a choice. Okay, if you're hurt and you're depressed and you're down, and someone comes along and they're nice to you, you don't have a choice. You're going to fall in love with them. You don't have the option to say no, any more than you have the option to stay in bed when the house is on fire, right? There's predators who know this. There's predators who seek hurt, depressed, beautiful women. And they treat them special and they make them feel good. And they know that that type will have no choice but to get out of bed and not have the house burned down. And they'll use that to manipulate them and keep them in their power. I mean, there's predators who do that. Okay? There's women who do that to men. They find a man who's got no self-esteem, who's got, masculine issues, and they use that, and they use the fact that he wants to get out of that state to manipulate him. Okay, so when we're in a tamasic state, yeah, we're in a manipulable place. We have no choice but to reach for anything that seems better than our current situation. So be aware that being in that state is a place you want to heal as quickly as possible, because you can be taken advantage of if you're in that state. Unfortunately, that doesn't really happen that often. More often what happens is that, yes, there are kind, considerate people who will care about you, even though you're in a tough state. And they're going to want to love you and cherish you because they see something in you that maybe you're missing. And they're going to truly care about you. There's more of those people, luckily. But even if you meet that kind of person, remember, if you're choosing out of that motivation, it's your job to grow into a more whole person that doesn't need to choose a person out of pain, but that you grow into a person who chooses your partner out of who you really are, out of the joyful nature of your spirit. And therefore you choose the person who you can most readily and completely share that with. Okay? So, like I was saying, so many relationships do start out as tamas, and some of them are beautiful, beautiful relationship when there's the caring component. And two people both can be in a tamasic place, a place of a lot of pain, and care about each other and see something in the other that allows each person to be in a better place. And then if each person will take responsibility to become more whole, then they can graduate into different elements of, different motivations to be with each other. If as they heal, they find out their true selves are truly mirror images of each other, then they can graduate onto a sattvic relationship and live happily ever after. Okay? The odds of that are slim, but it could happen. It does happen. But realize, if you look at some of your past relationships and you start looking at it under these concepts, it'll make sense to you of why, yeah, I really needed that, and why I grew out of that, or why I started feeling stuck there, you know? Because you don't want to be stuck there. You don't want to be in that relationship because you are depressed, and your reason for being there because you are depressed. And if you really are living as yourselves, you'll think, gosh, if I really start living as myself, I can see that I'm not really working with my partner, so I'm not going to live as myself because I don't want to lose them. No, your job is to heal, to learn to live as yourselves, and then if your partner works, great. If not, get rid of him or her. Find yourself someone who fits better based on who you really are, and move up the chain, the thread, the string, and get the thicker string. We want more and more sattva in our life. We want our choices to be more and more those truly committed choices that are based on who we really are. Choices that are not based on who we truly are not going to be choices we want to keep the rest of our lives. Okay? Now, the rajas is interesting because it's based on who we truly are as a species, basically. We're all humans, right? So we can always be with the girl, or be with the guy, or be with the gay girl, or be with the gay guy, whatever, based on the fact that we're sexual humans, and that as humans we all have the certain or similar other needs for affection and respect. We can just choose something because of these casual denominators that are common, okay, to our species. But sattva is when we choose something because it truly reflects who we really are in our own unique essence. Okay? So keep this in mind in all of our choices: job, work, spiritual life, love, relationships. We want to observe, what's my motivation? Okay, if it's this motivation, it means I have to grow. If it's out of a tamas motivation, you still need to grow into yourself until you discover the sattvic reason. So if you're getting a job because if not, you're going to be evicted and starving, that's a tamasic reason to go to work. You have to, it's a good reason to go to work. It's a really, really, really good reason. But if you go to work because if not, you'll get evicted, well, if your uncle dies and leaves you $1 million, the first thing you're going to do is quit your job and not go to work, right? But if you do your work out of a sattvic reason, because it's just who you are, when your uncle dies and gives $1 million, you think, how can I use this $1 million to further what I'm doing here? Okay, you don't think, oh, now I'll quit my job. You think, how can I do more of my work now that I have this big budget to work with? Okay? So it's a very different experience of things we do. And in life, a lot of choices are going to be based on, I have to do it or else. And that's totally good. What I love about life is it works all together. If I don't do this, I'll be in trouble, so you do it. And then because you did that thing, you find something about yourself that makes you realize, oh, this is what I really am. And so then you do it. Like when I got into astrology, why did I start studying it so much? Well, when I was a teenager, years before, I was always sort of interested in astrology, like sun signs in the newspapers, and I read like some real cheesy Western astrology books like Sun Signs, those really basic, popular, everyone, New York bestseller, astrology books. And I was really fascinated by it, but I never was like, I'm going to do this, I was being a bike racer, I was being a martial artist, and I was living out my Kshatriya side. And, but when I got my heart chopped into little pieces, then I'm like, okay, I'm in trouble. How am I going to fix this mess that's inside my chest? And I fix it with astrology. And after I fixed it with astrology, I was like, wow, this is what I am. And that was a secondary thing. Through going through that painful motivation, it led me to an experience of astrology. It healed me, and I was feeling good. But then I was just like, wow, I'm an astrologer. So I discovered that as part of that. As a result of really immersing myself in astrology, and I immersed myself into astrology because of tamas, because of pain. I wanted to escape the pain. So that's what I love about life, is how we go through tamas, rajas, sattva. We go through these different reasons we do something to discover different reasons within ourselves to do. the same thing more fervently or something completely differently. And this can happen in your relationships too. You can have maybe involved yourself with someone because of a tamasic reason, but as you heal, once you finally get healed and you don't need that motivation, you might discover a whole nother beautiful potential with your current partner, or you might discover beautiful potential with someone else. It really don't matter. You're moving up to a thicker rope, a thicker tie between you and what you do, and moving longer to longer, more committable, more fulfilling commitments. Commitments we make out of sattva are the most fulfilling because we're living as our true selves. We're finding the fulfillment of our true selves with that commitment. Commitments made out of tamas are like, oh good, I don't have to suffer that. It has nothing to do with fulfillment. It's like I don't have to suffer that emptiness, but I'm not happy either. You know, anything we do with tamas just keeps us from the wrong side, from the dark side, from misery and pain. It does nothing to put us in a good place. Okay? It's just like, okay, you're going to survive now. Now it's time to work on yourself. That's all tamas motivation gives you. Okay? And that's really critical at times in our life, because there are times in our life when we really feel we're going to sink and die. And then the person shows up and they're like our life raft or our angel or something. When we do things out of rajas, oh gosh, I forgot my thought on that. We're doing things because it keeps me from being bored. It's exciting, it keeps me from being bored. It'll be so much fun. But it's not necessarily who you are, it just kind of keeps you from being bored and gives you a little entertainment, a little fun, a little excitement. Okay? And in astrology, we have different planets that give us a sattva, rajas, or tamas motivation. And we have different signs of the zodiac that give us a different sattva, rajas, or tamas motivation. And all of us are born with all those planets and all those signs in our horoscope. So we're all going to engage in sattva, rajas, and tamas motivated actions. And they're all beautiful ways of progressing through our lives. Okay? And neither is a better reason to do something than the other. Just some reasons are longer lasting than others. If you want to say a longer lasting reason is a better reason, I don't know. When you're about to die and you get a lifeboat, it seems like a really good thing, even if it only lasts one day that you're in that lifeboat. Some of my deepest experiences of love have been, 20 minutes of somebody saving me from drowning. It's like when you're in a tamasic place, when you're in a place where you're actually really beat, really low, really hurt, and someone comes along and makes the difference. I mean, you really, at that moment, you are clinging to that person, whether they're male, female, same gender as you or opposite gender. You have an experience of love with that person. So, the only difference between these gunas is the duration. They're all validly and equally important, okay? But also, again, an important thing to observe about the choices you make in your life, an important thing to observe about your relationship. So if you observe that, gosh, I chose this person out of tamas, well, that lets you understand, I need to work on myself and get myself into a joyful state. And then reassess what my potential with my partner. Because my only other option is to be in a state where I need constant medication. Where I need this constant of them to keep me from succumbing to my depression. If you're in a rajas motivation, and you find, my relationship's just kind of rajas, you need to think, okay, well, do I want a deeper level of fulfillment? Or is this kind of this more superficial, is this sort of exciting and fun level good enough for me? If you want a deeper level of fulfillment, it means you have to work on discovering your true self more. So your true self can take you to a deeper level of fulfillment with yourself and to making choices with things, including people, that allow you to have a deeper fulfillment with them as a mirror, an extension of yourself. Okay? And if you look at your life and you're lucky enough to see some of the the big things in your life, the big commitments, your work commitment and your relationship commitment, if one or both of those are a sattvic motivation, you're really, really lucky. Okay? And if both of those are a sattvic motivation, you're like styling. Okay? And look at the difference between your relationship. Say you have in work but not love. Look at the difference between your relationship with your work and your relationship with your partner. And you realize, wow, if I had to choose work or my partner, what would I choose? You'd end up choosing work if you have a sattvic relationship with. Ultimately, we're always going to choose the things we actually have a sattvic relationship with, that we're doing because they're who we really are. Okay? So it's good to just observe this. If you're in a tamas or rajas motivated relationship, realize that there's room for you to grow as a person, and therefore there's room for your relationship to grow in fulfillment dramatically if you want to make that step of growing as a person first. Okay? All right. Enough on this, I think. So ultimately, we're striving to make fulfilling choices, the most fulfilling choices possible, and not dry intellectual choices, but loving, warm choices that reflect the inspirations of your heart and also the inspirations of your mind, and also the needs of your body. Okay. In a way that truly reflects who you are, that truly works with who you are. That's the goal we're all moving towards, that we all want to achieve. And until we reach that goal, we're not going to be completely satisfied with anything we have. We're going to find reasons to complain about it. Okay? So this is all what we need to do. Okay, thank you.